Okay, in today's lesson, we're going to take and continue with where we left off yesterday, dealing with absolute value equations. But if you notice, the equations we're going to be solving today don't have absolute value in them. Well, at least not yet. It's important that we understand this theorem called the absolute value square root theorem. What it says is that if you ever take the square root of an x squared, your answer is not x, your answer is the absolute value of x. So, just like what I just said here, or just posted up here, the square root of x squared is not x. That's a common mistake people make. So this is what you need to make sure you know, is that the square root of x squared equals the absolute value of x. Or the square root of any variable squared is going to be the absolute value of that variable. For example, let's look at this example here, number 2. It says we have the square root, or we have k squared equals 121. Well, if I want to figure out what k is, because you might say, oh, well, square root of 121 is 11. Yes, it is true the square root of 121 is 11, but in order to do that, I have to take the square root of k squared. Well, the square root of k squared is not k, it's the absolute value of k. And this is what I want to see in your assignment today. So the square root of k squared is absolute value of k. The square root of 121 is 11. But from what we learned about yesterday, there's two answers that I could put inside of here to get 11 as my answer. K could equal 11 or negative 11. Okay? I don't want you skipping this step. I want to see that step in your work for your quizzes, so you might as well be doing it now on your homework assignment so you can get used to it. Otherwise, if you don't show your work, you're going to lose points. So let's look at the next one. Here we have x squared equals 64. Again, we want to take the square root of both sides to find out what x equals. Well, the square root of x squared is not x, it's the absolute value of x. Square root of 64 is 8. Again, just to review, square roots is we're looking for what number times itself would give us 64. 8 times 8 is 64, so the square root of 64 is 8. So it means I have two answers here. It could be 8 or negative 8. Well, let's start looking at some problems that are more difficult. Let's look at number 4 here. For this one, I would start out by, by the way, you always want to take care of the square root at the very end. So I don't start with the square root. Don't get overzealous. Don't think that, oh, I see a square there, I have to take the square root of it. You do that at the very end, meaning we want to isolate the variable. We want to get the m squared by itself. So I start by adding 4 on both sides. So now I get m squared equals, well, 12 plus 4 is 16. Now I take the square root of both sides. Again, the square root of m squared is not m, it's the absolute value of m. So that means m could equal 4 or negative 4. Why don't you guys try the next one on your own? So why don't you, referring to example 5 there, so why don't you pause the video, hit play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, let's check to see what you did here. So first you start out by adding 3 to both sides, giving us x squared equals 81. Take the square root of both sides. The square root of x, remember, is not x, it's the absolute value of x. Square root of 81 is 9. So that means that there's two things that I could put inside of there that would give me 9 as my answer. 9 and negative 9. Okay, hopefully you got that one right. Let's look at the last couple. Let's look at number 6. Each of these, as you notice, we're adding more and more pieces to it. This time we have a number in front of the k squared. Again, our goal is to get the k squared, or our variable, all by itself, including the 25. But we follow the reverse of the order of operations, remember? So I start out by adding or subtracting anything. So I start out by adding 2 to both sides. So don't take the square root yet. We want to get the k squared by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 25. So now I have k squared equals, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. Now I can take the square root of both sides. Again, the square root of k squared is the absolute value of k. Square root of 4 is 2, so that means that k equals 2 and negative 2. I need to see all your work just like what I just did. So why don't you guys try the next one on your own? So pause the video and hit play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, let's see what you did. You should have added 10 to both sides. Again, we're trying to isolate the n squared, so I Start by adding 10 to get 81. Now I divide both sides by 9, so that way we do have the n squared by itself. 81 divided by 9 is 9. Take the square root of both sides. Absolute value of, or square root of n squared is the absolute value of n. Square root of 9 is 3, so I have two numbers that I could get. Put inside of absolute value to get 3 as my answer. 3 and negative 3, so that's my answer. Okay, so hopefully you understand now the connection between solving equations when we have a square in it and the absolute value. So the key to this lesson is to remember that the square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. Pretty simple. So good luck on your assignment.